Hey, it's your boy, Matt Talk.
I'm talking. This is me
Hello.
talking. I'm using my voice to say things.
Yes,
Sound
now
check,
stop.
yada
Stop
yada.
doing that, please, immediately. What's up, everybody? It's Lunch and Lore. It's Ninja Man Matt and Tormented by Gnomes bringing to you the latest and greatest from the wide world of Anakra, the Four Kingdoms, and other stuff. In our first 5 minutes, we're supposed to eat our lunch and answer audience questions. Lunch is en route, so audience, ask questions. Otherwise, we're going to ignore you. Yeah, other than that, we got stuff for the next 45 to 50 minutes. Matt, how you been?
Yeah, I'm good. How about yourself?
Man, I just got back from Phoenix, Arizona. Ran the big charity game for the V Shoujo folks. They had a great time. I had a great time. Raised like $70,000 for the Immune Deficiency Foundation.
Dude, that's
Uh,
incredible. I had to log out and take my kid to bed, but last time I checked, you were at 55, and I ended the stream on, "I'm sorry, you all. You have to be nice to each other for the next 15 minutes." I was like, that's a good place to leave off.
I'm out. I'm out. I'm not about any of this niceness.
I'm
Disgusting.
not the best at knowing everyone's names, but there's this one. She's like a dragon. I've seen some of her
Zentrea.
stuff before. Yes, and she was like, "You all have to be nice to me now. Everyone say something nice to me." It was
Did
so
you
fun.
see her like messing with props and stuff in the background?
No, I didn't catch that.
All right,
That's
so Iron
hilarious.
Mouse, I should pull up a clip. I'm not going to right now because I don't want to because I'm really tired. I'm still really tired from it. But one of the
Can
awards is that
imagine.
Iron Mouse has to turn off her hair and go bald. So her
Yes,
model was bald.
I
And
remember.
when Zentrea joined, the way she was set up on the stage was behind her.
Yeah.
So without saying anything, she just like pulls up a Sharpie like on her model and just starts writing on the back of Iron Mouse's head. And later on, she's like, we're in hell, so everything's very hot, right? And that heat would radiate off reflective surfaces, right? And she pulls out a couple of kebabs and starts cooking food on Iron Mouse's
Oh
head.
my
Like,
gosh,
it was
that's
so
so
funny.
good.
And
Oh my
Kuro had
gosh.
never played before, and he was so good. He was so good.
I liked his voice. He sounded really fun, very engaging. And poor Booby just sounded like they were doing everything they could just to keep things on track.
You and I both recognize that. It's like, oh, there's one player who's actually trying to follow the plot, and everyone else is just shit posting.
I think my favorite part of the whole exchange when you did the be nice thing with like, you have something nice about me, Iron Mouse was like, and then Booby's like, I like the way you cast spells. Like, that's not a good thing. Like, I really want to see you cast a spell. That would be really great.
I love the way
I
you
think you're
advance
amazing
the
at that.
plot.
I love the way we keep this going because the DM is vamping hard right now. We need to continue on. The boss is just lingering there, waiting to be hit.
It was fun. It was a lot
What a
of
cool
fun.
stage as well. The way
Right?
you guys all brought that together was so awesome.
So we did the show in October that had like 5 different locations, and this time we set everything in just one Unreal environment, just the hell environment. It worked so much better.
That was
We're
great.
already talking about how we can do it differently next time and like upgrades and improvements and stuff, but overall super happy. It was funny
It
seeing.
looked like
Go ahead. No, you go.
Oh, I was just saying it to me when I was watching it, it reminded me of looking like an old, like not old, but like an older Final Fantasy game or like JRPG where you could almost feel like at every turn, like the turn counter was ticking up so they could take their action and like the boss is
Yeah.
there and it was very, very cool.
Honestly, I think in the future I want to lean more into the video game vibes, like put health bars on all the tokens, get their
Oh
little character
yeah.
tokens to have animations, stuff like that.
Absolutely. That would
It
be
was
sick.
it was funny people saying, "What virtual tabletop is this?" And I was like, "We built this in the Unreal Engine. This is not a publicly available product. You cannot just go out and be like, I want." Yeah, and the dice, like we barely got any tech time beforehand with the talent because they're kind of extremely busy all the time.
Yeah.
So we weren't able to make sure that they, like, I don't know why they couldn't roll their own dice. But it was a thing.
It was a thing. Now, enough talking about your incredibly successful charity campaign. We are now going to be talking about the Western Kingdom of Badura.
Yes, I keep getting distracted because I mean to share out the map, and I keep getting to. There's also a cat fighting hard for my attention.
while you are prepping the map, I'm going to share just very recent, the last couple of discussions, we have talked about the history of Irilek, its purpose, its structure, terrain layout, all the facilities and locations that are there, and what peoples and organizations make it up. Kind of just going from we're just broad stroking a lot of this just so we can start making sure that we can collect more and more details as we zoom in closer and closer to be able to actually build these things out and be ready for War of the Sun West whenever that happens. We have been talking about the pre-demonic Imperium cost moving into when the entire enormous region that makes up that northernmost portion of Badora gets absolutely just raffle stomped by the demonic Imperium. So far, we've discussed the Northern Kingdom of Wynn, the people that dedicate to their ancestors. They're a collection of wild warriors, guides, and monistic monks, you know, because there's other kinds of monistic beings other than monks. You've also got Dokofar grottos. There's that horrible, I can't even say that crazy monster that you made, the Krula.
The Krula. Yeah, actually, that was
There
pretty
you
close
go.
to Krula.
That was not bad, actually.
Arthropods who somehow exist in the cold where arthropods should not exist, but, you know, a wizard.
Magical arthropod.
Magical, a magical Eopleurodon.
You know, everywhere that we have crazy, weird reptilian or insectoid creatures amongst Anakra, there's a hidden wizard tower like 50 clicks somewhere nearby where they're just running magical experiments trying to make this happen. I have to make all the weird creatures. I'm trying to combine monkeys and turtles so I can have monkey turtles. I will get there eventually. But first, I have to perfect cold-blooded creatures surviving here in the snow. This will do it. I know it.
Here at Acme Arctic Arthropods, we pride ourselves on the quality of our product.
Yes. And we discussed the Eastern most kingdom of water, where they make a lot of pacts with things like genies, various supernatural forces. They're sailors, privateers, and merchants, and they do a lot of enchanting there. And we were just moving in today. We were going to start talking about the Southern Kingdom of Fire, the Kingdom of Ministry, and then the Western Kingdom of Earth, the Kingdom of Strength. And so I got some talking points that we can start going over. We also have a few more things that we can bring up as time goes on, but let me see. It is right now 10 past when lunch was supposed to be delivered. I just vamped while you got your map up. You vamp while I check my front door.
Yep. By all means. By all means. This version of Anakra is a supercharged version of the Undercroft where alchemical and experimental mistakes are allowed to run free. I feel like there's definitely areas of Anakra that are like that. I think a great deal of Anakra is coming up with something and then figuring out how it would work afterwards. Not gonna lie, chat. I'm still very, very tired. I'm still kind of spaced out as well. So I'm glad that Matt is actually keeping track of things. Does Anakra have gunpowder? That's an interesting question. That's an interesting question. Because canonically, no. Meaning that dwarf artillery they don't actually get cannons for that in War of the Sun. I have had gunpowder appear from time to time, usually during Tales of the Golden Bough, because there was like a one-off character who really wanted to play a gunslinger. And so for that, I kind of just say like, yeah, you can play that. And then we're not going to look over here. Bronx Kirby is only semi-canonical, stuff like that. But canonically, right now, Anakra does not have gunpowder yet. And it's less that I used to be very like no gunpowder in my fantasy. I'm much less that these days. But mostly it's the fact that we are still supposed to be pretty early in Anakra's history, and I'd like to do that later, for the most part.
Yeah, we have. It's funny. We actually, this is not a question that was asked in chat, but in our Discord, we had a question that came up in regards to what if the sovereigns and the titans of Anakra had all eventually either disincorporated, died out, whatever happened, and they were replaced with automatons, like constructs, like magical gods that are, made of clockwork steel, robotic stuff and all that. And it kind of took on more of instead of being more elementally set up, and they still could have elemental, obviously, persuasions to them, but if they were going to be more like constructs that these machine gods watch over Anakra and see to it from there. And it's kind of interesting because we did talk about if Sin had his way, like obviously like the tech tree would go up and up and up and up until eventually we would hit some more, modern style things like gunpowder and all that. But we were really pushing for more so kind of like Magitech, this blending of magic and technology rather than just straight up guns. Which, artificers love. That's a big thing for most, D&D fantasy settings. So that's totally within the realm of things happening. It's just less about, hey, here's black powder, and more like here's some really cool kind of arcane like reagent that activates the gun or some sign of, or maybe some kind of spring loaded thing like crossbows, a crossbow and a gun. What's the difference?
An arcane rail gun,
Yeah, exactly.
A certain magical rail gun.
Exactly.
What was I about to say? It was about that. Oh, riddle me this. What'd you get?
Sliders and fries, and they smell so good. Like, so good.
Oh, hell yeah. All right, riddle me this.
Batman.
Why is there any reason why a sentient construct could not claim a mantle of a sovereign?
I think it would. So you said sentient construct. So no, I don't think a sentient strong. I don't think that would prevent anything because technically we already have it established that. Have we talked about the scribes and Moss? Do people know about the scribes? Is that a big thing it's okay to talk about?
If you've been watching Ioth Academy, you definitely know because they discovered Anachronus's big secret. So, put it
obviously,
on mute.
Yeah, big spoiler secret. Everyone, if you don't want to hear, move away. We've given plenty of time. All right. So if it is a, construct or machine that has ties to the scribes, which are sentient constructs that were created in order to safeguard Anakra and the Emerald tablets and all that, then yeah, I think that would be very easily doable. I think that a mage, powerful otherwise, taking vital and psychic energy and combining it inside of a construct and basically bringing Warforged into the because right now we don't really have Warforged in Anakra, at least not like, I mean, obviously they can be in here. We've made space to where they can exist anywhere, but like generally as part of our lore.
I have had them pop up in the East because of primarily because of designers.
But are they actually fully realized people or are they just war machines?
Some of them are sentient.
Okay, well, it would take a lot. This is not like any acolyte wizard would be able to just combine vital and psychic energy and do their own ready make a monk list to take on the.
A golem could not take on the mantle, right?
Correct.
A clockwork construct that doesn't have a soul. Now, I would argue that said soul would not need to be a combination of vital and psychic energy. It's possible it could be elemental and psychic energy as long as it is sentient. I
was just using that as our example because we usually talk about
that's the default. Yeah, no, that's for sure the default.
But yeah, it definitely, if you got soul, you could technically, but it's not just you have soul. You have to have soul and a measure because you can't just take over the mantle of a titan or a sovereign, in this case, becoming a suzerain.
It would destroy you most of the time.
It's like an infinity stone. You grab that thing and take that mantle and you go, hey, I'm going to be fine. And no, if you're not ready, you're not going to be fine.
That's one of the reasons why Ariana went to go train at Irilek, because it has been determined that she has the capacity to bear a titanic or sovereign mantle.
And I would say the same for the mantles of the courts of the Huldra. You can't just say, hey, I'm the next in line to be the Winter Queen. And it's like, well, yeah, you need to prep and train for that. This isn't just gonna, fall to you when you're a babe in the crib and like, oh, look, it's our little Winter Queen. Like, that's not gonna happen. So definitely mantles of power are big boosts in it's a template. It's a huge template with prerequisites. The prerequisites need to be met or you die. So yeah, I don't see any reason why technically an automaton with a soul wouldn't be able to take on the mantle of a god.
I didn't respond because I make a habit of not talking in the tinfoil Discord just to allow them to. Oh, I can hear myself. Why can I hear myself? Hold on.
These fries are delicious, by the way. Very, very yummy. While your some people don't like it, so if you don't like it, don't look. I'm gonna take a bite of this here sandwich. It's a nice slider, and it looks yummy, and it looks very.
Okay, I think the thing that the cat touched has. Nope, it's not fixed. It's still duplicating.
This is where the lunch and lore comes from. My goodness, it's delicious. Oh.
So apparently, chat doesn't hear the duplication. Only I hear the duplication.
Enjoy the poop.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can keep trying to go forward. I'll just slowly lose my mind.
Is it better if I talk slower or faster?
Dude, I do not know what this cat just pressed. This cat pressed some sort of bad button. Let's just try to struggle through it as best we can.
Okay, I mean, like, we haven't gone deep into anything for real. We could just do a quick refresh if that's easier for you.
Yeah, let me try that.
Try turning it off and turning it back on again. I can't tell you how many times, especially through college, I would message Gnomes and be like, I'm having some serious trouble. He's like, have you tried turning it off? Yes, I've tried turning it off and that on again. And I would do it and it would work. And I'd be like, I did try that. And he's like, well, technology works better when you have somebody watching you be dumb. And I'm like, wow, yeah, that's true. Or like when we're setting up for shows and I would have all this horrible audio tech trouble. I would never change a setting on any of my devices. And it would just decide to move things around for you because technology is awful. And it seeks to destroy us and undermine us in every possible way. While we drive Gnomes mad with me talking a lot and him trying to solve this, I'm going to keep vamping. So that way, while we continually stream, we'll have something to give y'all, aside from me eating this delicious food that thank you very much, Mama Shalada. Very glorious and wonderful lunch for the lore. I'm going to go ahead and just, since I don't want to miss out on Joe's take on things, I'm just going to give us a little deeper dive on some of that recap that we had from before. One of the things that came up, and it was not anything that we had planned, it just kind of developed through you guys chiming in chat with things that we were discussing, asking questions about what would be there. We came up with a grotto, at least, one culture that is going to be in the northern most kingdoms of Kost. And again, we call them kingdoms. That's kind of just a placeholder name right now. They're not really kingdoms. They're more like, I would say they're more like sultanates or kalistars, depending on like where you are. This is very, very blanket terms right now. Again, as we develop,
the neutral term is realm.
Realm. There you go. The realms. I like to stick with kingdom usually because we call it the four kingdoms, and so I kind of just go along with the kingdom thing. But yes, you did. Nice.
Yeah, I figured it out. The cat pressed the M key on my keyboard, which unmuted the stream that I was looking at. That's what happened. That's what happened. That was the source of the duplication. Everything is fixed now. Everything is fine forever.
Glorious forever. I love it. Well, aside from the grotto, we came up with a really cool refuge that travels around the Sky Kingdom and the other realm and the mortal realm. So yeah, it's some cool stuff going on there. So anyways, let's get into it. Today, all right, we are going to be talking about the Southern Kingdom, or realm rather, of fire, and the Western realm of earth. Again, I've got some talking points here that we can go over, but basically the realm of fire is going to be filled with, at first, just tons of incredible cavalry. There would be horse lords that would hold domain here. Always looking, this culture of people were always looking to I guess you could say, get one up on those around them. They would make sure that they would utilize not just their own strength of arms, but any outside force they could use. You can kind of imagine the idea is like if you're starting off just punching each other, they're like, you know what? If I grab a stick, I now increase my reach, increase my power, and then someone else grabs a stick. Okay, now you have a stick. Now I need to upgrade that. And they keep trying to, get one over on anyone around them. And so eventually, that incredible cavalry never goes away, but it eventually evolves into becoming master crafters. They end up mass producing fine weaponry. They develop some of the first siege engines in their area, and they make such huge and monumental war machines that between their massively outfitted infantry, their unmatched cavalry, and just these huge machines of war, it's very easy for this group, this culture, to spread out and just dominate the area. They are basically known as like the upholders or the seneschals of sin. Obviously, considering we are in Badura, which is Joe and I have been contested on exactly which land both Sin and Liban hold sway, but we've kind of settled that Badura, I believe we said, is going to be Liban's domain, and they largely leave it kind of alone, aside from the fact that it's like everything else surrounded in water. But Sin's palace and their actual capital is not too far away from here, and so obviously this, among other places, would have been one of the main areas that he would have been going and kind of raising up, teaching those about creating big, vast, and in this case, imperial civilizations. Eventually, the Legionnaire, one of the unmatched military mights of the demonic Imperium's Kingdom of Iron, they have an iron grove. One of their first starts out near abouts this area, and they, utilizing their own incredible commanding potential, they overtake the military of the Realm of Fire and basically undo it from the inside out. And the sense that I'm getting from this, and again, you can kind of chime in and let me know how you feel about it, since when we initially incepted the Legionnaire, they've always been this strong right hand to Uzul, but I feel like you've been playing around with them a lot more over recent years. And so how do you think that the Legionnaire would go about overtaking a incredibly militarized group? I feel like my thought is that eventually, after this onslaught and decimation that happens there, and they end up subjugating everyone there, that the people of fire would end up utilizing sabotage to overcome that complacency of, once things have kind of, like you said, everything's very regimental with the Iron Empire. They're very much like everything is done according to a certain code. Obviously, they play around within the realm of like what they have to do for each different area, but for the most part, their planning is all the same. Their tactics are very much, I mean, they utilize different tactics, obviously, for different occasions, but for the most part, they use tried and true methods everywhere they go. And so I feel like even if you are trying to stay vigilant, eventually that is going to end up leaning towards a sense of complacency, where eventually things and people are going to have, like, like if you have like a guard posting and like, okay, we know the guard changed at this time to this time, we've got this small little moment where we can try and do something, that kind of a thing. And I feel like if it was sabotage that initially brought them low, then it's the very thing that eventually saves them. But what do you think about that?
All right, let's take a diversion before we get there, a necessary diversion, to talk about the Legionnaire.
Yes,
because what I've been doing with the Legionnaire, based on his appearances in a campaign that we play, your campaign that's set later in Anakra, and based on the fact that he's an evil druid, which is a super, super rando thing to be, right? I thought that he started out as a native Dabruki, and he was active in the east until the One Flesh descended after the apotheosis of Ramius, because he got yeeted over to the west on Debruk along with everyone else. And if that's the case, he wouldn't have been active during the height of the Iron Empire in the west at all.
That is correct. Well, because again, things have changed a bit since the
Right,
last time
right,
we
right.
had
That's
discussed all this. So you're right. Legionnaire
Mhm.
wouldn't have been here, but I think the forces of
the there's a big Iron Empire figure in this area who, because the way that the Iron Empire works, and I need to figure out at some point what the first province was. Was that the same druid that Lisha encountered? No, that
No.
was a different scenario, possibly under the same tradition, the original tradition, but no. I don't recall Lisha ever encountering an Uzulite druid. I know she encountered a anti-mortal Foamhorde druid of the Autumn Court who was working with the giants because they wanted to negate the rise of Galadron and prevent them from imposing on their lands. Going back to the Legionnaire, right. So I don't know where the first Iron Empire was yet, mate. That's one thing I don't know, because the first Iron Empire province was, I believe, founded by Uzul himself. Because normally the way that Uzul works when he's founding a new province is he finds somebody in a culture or an area who will listen to him, who he can uplift and give resources, give training, give magic, give armies, help them rise to power. Usually somebody who is like not necessarily a rebel, but someone who's more aligned with his ideology in the first place and has the potential to be a good Archon.
Yeah.
So either this can't be the first one, because the first province shouldn't fall until the apotheosis of Ramius. It's very unlikely that any force on Anakra would overthrow Uzul himself, right?
Well, and it kind of makes sense that Uzul would probably, I mean, obviously they can go technically wherever they want, but to me it makes sense if they're more so near Kiaz, where they ended up felling Irakura, if that's where they're most active.
So we need to figure out a location when we get down here. Eventually, when we get down here, we need to figure out where the first province was. But anyways, what would happen is Uzul would most likely find somebody who's already a member of this society, but has some political clout or military training, etc., and then sponsor them like the CIA to overthrow the government.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever this figure is, if you're saying that they used sabotage and covert tactics in order to establish their rise to power, the Grand Archon, the first Archon of a given province, has a big chance to set some of the culture and traditions of that province, even though they have to follow all the laws of the Iron Empire. So there's a legendary figure who is the first Archon of this province that was once this fire realm that becomes subverted and becomes part of the Iron Empire. Maybe it's an artificer, which would also be unusual, because in almost all cases, artificers who go infernal go anachronous, right? So it's either an artificer, maybe it's one of those artificers who like builds personal armor and goes into battle rather than like being the mechanist and sitting back making inventions. They like wear their stuff into battle. And we can come up with this legendary figure later. But Uzul basically uplifts this legendary figure, lets them control the whole government. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be an insurgent. It could be the people who are already in power, right?
And also, just to clarify, when I was initially planning for the Legionnaire, to me it kind of made sense that they would use more cunning tactics. But I think the most important thing is that the Iron Empire that is there overtakes the military, like because basically you're kind of having each of the Demonic Imperium threats is kind of overcoming like the main strength of each of these of these cultures, and then they end up figuring out a way. The ones obviously that don't just either fall into despair, are utterly destroyed, routed, or otherwise taken and absorbed within the Iron Empire. They fight back. They hold on to a semblance of what was their main strength, and they kind of use that and turn it against them. And so I feel like sabotage not necessary. To me, it makes more sense that a group that is subjugated in such a way would use sabotage to overcome their.
So it's more likely that Uzul speaks to somebody who's already in a position of power in the military and sort of spreads Uzulite ideology through the existing military. So it's like a
I
military
feel like
coup.
yes, like
Yeah.
a civil war break. That makes sense. If you had this kingdom of war and industry that was always trying to one up each
Mhm.
other, and you have multiple groups that have very similar ideologies, and then eventually there's this big splintering where it just fractures between not even like multitudes of different groups that are all kind of vying for
Mhm.
power and doing this weird check and balance to keep each other at bay, and just many of them side with Uzul, and it would just
Mhm.
disrupt the rest of them. So that would
Right.
make a lot more sense.
So there's two main ways this could happen. And again, we don't need the details of this right now. There's two main ways this
Yeah.
can happen. Version 1 is the Rome version. In the Rome version, a powerful general declares themselves emperor, right? Except in this
Yes.
case, they declare themselves archon. So they're already a powerful general, and the army supports them. They declare themselves emperor. The Republic or whoever's in charge says, no, don't do that. And they say, I have the army, get wrecked, right? That's one version where this popular figure stages the coup and takes over the government. The other is the Emperor Palpatine situation, which is the person who is already in charge. The establishment just changes ideology but remains in power, right? So the current Fire Lord, like not the Fire Lord, but the totally not the Fire Lord, becomes the first Archon. Rather than it being a challenger, it's the establishment that gets corrupted. And I don't think the answer to that question is necessary to continue, because one
No.
way or another, the military is subverted, right? They're not defeated, they are subverted. The military, the warriors of this realm, become the instrument by which Uzul assumes direct control. Establishing.
I mean, because you gotta.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, because you gotta figure like all of these various realms and cultures. It's not like they're all being forced into labor camps. I mean, that happens, to quite a few of them. But you've
Mhm.
got rebels and in saboteurs and various
Mhm.
resistances that are all over the land that are trying to fight back and
Mhm.
holding out. But again, serving a very secretive or nomadic lifestyle, depending on
Right.
the realm that they're in. But you have both. You have the people of Koss fighting both outside in and on the inside out. So
Mhm.
yeah, that totally. By the way, why wouldn't we be able to do both if we could have this very, secretive plan where this one figure, this Archon, is gaining power and becoming this very charismatic and political leader within uh, this collection of various powers within this militaristic uh, imperium, and eventually there's this traitorous split where many of these groups, either by getting slowly brought into the fold by Uzul
Mhm.
and their agents, or just is, dedicated to following this Archon, who then does this big grand reveal. Actually, we're not doing a coup to take over the land. We're actually part of the demonic imperium. It's coming anyway, and we're going to make this happen. That kind of a
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah, I think that the main difference is that a lot of the other, like the lands of Imon Karak in the east, which are become Ithgos province, one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful eastern province. That was originally it was like a bunch of nomadic warlord tribes, right, who were all sort of fighting each other. And rather
Mhm.
than taking over the entire government, there was no entire government. Basically, Uzul just sort of propped one up, helped them rise to power.
Yes.
And then when
Yeah.
somebody else challenged them and beat them, Uzul was like, that was pretty good. You want everything I was giving them? And they said, okay, sure. But it was a much more chaotic scrabble for power rather than an
Yeah.
existing structure being rotted from within. And that's the main
Mhm.
difference here, is that it rots from within.
Yeah, exactly. For now, I'm going to put Archon comes to power, stabilizes multiple factions that then fight it out and eventually go traitor against the rest. So
Mhm.
we'll just work with that for now, and we'll key into it later more specifically.
Cool. Yeah, that's plenty good. And then the hero of fire, because each of these realms ends up putting forth one great hero who becomes one of like the 5 founders of what will then be known as Kost. The hero of fire is a trickster hero.
Yeah.
And it's like the opposite of that military emperor battle for dominance. Like it's a fire trickster instead of a fire conqueror.
Yeah. Using kind of that sly cunning instead of that
Mhm.
crafted intellect in order to overcome their adversaries.
Yeah, because like all of the elements contain duality within themselves, right?
Yeah.
The earth is both
Say it.
life-giving and dead. Wind is both gentle and wrathful. Fire creates and destroys. Blah blah blah. I love the
Yeah.
idea of each of these 5 founding heroes sort of using the opposite. If one aspect of the element is used to corrupt the culture, they bring it back into balance by using the other aspect of it.
Yeah.
Creating the sense of duality. That'll make for a good myth, a good founding myth.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go
And
get my
then-
food, my lunch.
Yes, get your food. Get your food. Do the food thing. I'm gonna check and see if anybody else has brought. If you have any questions or anything that you want us to answer, whether you're being serious or just trolling, feel free to drop that in the chat, and we will go over anything you got there. Let me just take a quick look here. Actually, I can put on some fun music while we wait. Well, let's see. Do I have actual fun music? Nope, that's not it. Didn't that work? I don't know why that didn't work. Never mind. Forget it. I'm not going to worry about it. This is for the Sun, the Last Airbender. No, when you talk about elements and make it about 4, it's hard to not draw that comparison. But no, it will be decidedly very much not the Last Airbender. Although obviously, we were really into the Last Airbender, obviously for the last decade plus. So
it's 100% linking in.
When we were starting to talk about this stuff. Let's see. Yeah, that's true. Collapsing under their own weight. Just her. Okay, so the bonking was working. Okay, because I couldn't hear the bonking for some reason. Mate, can you hear this?
No.
How come we can't hear it? They can hear it.
If I can't hear it, chat shouldn't be able to hear it.
But just heard something about bonking. I've been bonking, trying to see if it works. Oh well. I don't know why we can't, but they can. That's weird. Okay, how about this? Let's try this. Okay, that looks like it's working.
Yeah, I heard that.
You heard that?
Yes. I hear the
Wow,
squeaking, which means chat can hear it.
None of my sounds are coming through on my end. That's so weird.
That means you're sending but not receiving. It has to do with your voice mod configuration. If you do the configuration wizard, it ought to fix that for you.
Okay.
I'll
play
like to thank Mama Shimada for this gluten-free pad thai.
Ooh.
I would love to eat it, but I cannot currently rid myself of this child who is being a plague upon my existence.
Mm-hmm.
And so as soon as he's done being a plague upon my existence, I will avail myself of this delicious food that Mama Shimada got me.
Yes.
All right.
Delicious fries.
So cavalry, war machines, technology are sort of the hallmarks of the Fire Realm, not the Fire Nation, the Fire Realm. And it's funny because we do have a rank called the Burning Lord, but they aren't in the Fire Nation. They're in Sharan. Also, when you mention Sin's palace, Sin doesn't have a palace for a while. At some point, we're going to have to figure out Sharan, but that's an entirely separate conversation.
Yes. Again, a lot of this is information that we had before that has now been changed, because things are now different, and we're having to consolidate what exactly has changed.
The eternal recombobulations.
Exactly. But what hasn't changed is Earth symbolizing steadfast strength and hardiness. And that is exactly what is brought to the table with the group, the culture, the realm, definitely not the Earth Kingdom, to the western portion of Badura, bordering along Akathua. You have this. Basically, if anybody is familiar with the Savage Lands from like the X-Men series, that's basically Akathua. You've got giants, you've got dinosaurs, you've got dragons, you've got absolutely enormous, scary beasts. Everything there is just supersized.
It's Kaiju Land. It's a designated high-level encounters, right?
It is like, hey, this is a level. I mean, this is back when I played Vanilla WoW, but it's like it's red. You're entering level 60 area, and there's raptors everywhere. This is to let you know things are dangerous. You probably shouldn't come here with your level 48, dark elf rogue, turn around and go level up somewhere else for a bit.
If you ever played Might and Magic and you're familiar with the Land of the Giants, which is like the final zone, and it's literally
Yes.
giants and dragons and just things that will absolutely kill the crap out of you. It's just it's like a death world.
Yes,
very
exactly.
Compartmentalized death world. That's what Akatha was.
A very compartmentalized death world, yes. And I mean, obviously terrain, makes the land. And so there are going to be natural barriers that, of course, are going to separate Akathua from the rest of Badura and make it more, realistic that it's not just these giant creatures, going and storming off everywhere. But actually, this is an important part as to why the great and powerful creatures of Akathua don't just break out of their own ecosystem, which, by the way, basically acts as its own like giant island. Because islands, for those of you in the know, they aren't just surrounded by water. An island is technically anywhere where it's cut off from anywhere and allowed to do its own little evolutionary upswing. Like certain deserts can be islands, mountains can be islands. Obviously, things out in the middle of the ocean are islands. But Akathua is basically its own like enormous island. And what keeps it that way is that you have this realm of people that are basically monster slayers, like giant slayers. These are monster tamers. You'll have people that erect these just enormous fortifications, these strongholds, these walls. You have these people that live basically like on the frontiers of what would be considered like, I guess you could say, neutral space between like what would be, because obviously there are cities, kingdoms, and peoples and cultures in Akathua. I'm not going to talk about one of the things that Joe and I used to talk about for Akathua. But you'll have like, kingdoms of ogres and giants and things out there, obviously. But more importantly, gosh darn it, mate. More importantly, in order to keep those peoples from pushing out and leaving their own ecosystem that has been perfectly set up for them and going and crushing all of the, not lesser as in they're not as good, but lesser as in very diminutive peoples by comparison, you have these kind of imagining like David and Goliath scenario. You have these really well-equipped, yes, but more so just foolhardy and completely just whatever, synapses connect, fear to the brain are just completely gone. These people build enormous cities and monuments. They're builders. They're a culture of builders. That's similar in a way to their nearby cousins of the Fire Cost. They do build some rather big, impressive things for war, but it's less about like combat versus combat, like big armies clashing with each other, and it's more like things that
How do you kill Godzilla?
How do you kill Godzilla? And so, look, I'm not saying this is Attack on Titan, but it's basically Attack on Titan. We've got huge
It's Attack
walls.
on Titan meets Monster Hunter, the Monster Hunter series.
Exactly that. And so you have a lot of people who you will ride enormous monster mounts into battle. You'll be scaling walls, and again, they don't have like these crazy jetpack harpoon gun things, but you do have people that will strap themselves onto a rampart and will be running along a wall because they have these angled walls to make sure that they're not just trying to say, hey, don't come here at all, but they're trying to ensure that they actually have a way of being able to engage with these creatures on some kind of a level footing. That way they're not tiny little person, big giant monster. Their entire architecture is built to where anything coming from Akathua is going to be having to go up a very long angled kind of what do you call it, like a ramp of sorts, and it gives these people the edge in being able to defend themselves and react and attack. And they're big on trappers. So you've got traps, you've got architecture built specifically to combat giant things, and a people that have completely devoted themselves towards basically holding the line for the rest of the smaller civilizations within Badura. And for the large part, everyone kind of leaves them alone. It's kind of like, well, here's the thing. Could we attack them from behind? Because they're very open and it'd be very easy for us to go in there and just take our large armies or our big, warriors and kind of go after them. But they're like kind of the only thing keeping really, truly horrific stuff from us. So it's like kind of like an armistice of like, look, we give them good trade deals, and we're here to support them and help them. We'll help outfit them. It's kind of like almost like if you kind of combine like Gnomes had said, Monster Hunter with with Attack on Titan with like the Night's Watch. It's kind of like, look, these people are revered amongst the Kosti, and you just leave them way the hell alone to do their own stuff because they're kind of preventing the floodgates of bad.
If you take their land, you also take their problems, and you don't want their problems.
Want their problems. Exactly that.
So, mate, one thing that occurs to me, the closer you get to that western frontier, the more of their buildings are built from giant dead things.
Yeah.
Like, how cool a motif would that be? Aside from having their cities built like giant tank traps and stuff, like they just hollow out enormous freaking monsters and turn them into houses.
To me, it's almost going to feel like, for anybody who's familiar with the Conan comics, it's like Hyboria, the really ancient post-Stone Age, pre-Iron Age, where it's kind of like the Bronze Age section of like, you've got basically really badass barbarians and pirates and stuff running around with these old bones and these old dead gods they can no longer speak to. And obviously, like, we're not completely bringing that motif here, but it's again, it's definitely not Earth Kingdom. There's a lot of things here that aren't like bossing, say, like, cool animals and stuff. This is a very different kind of scenario. So if you're trying to think about like, oh yeah, this is also a big place that has Earth powers and stuff. There are. We haven't really even gotten into that, the whole channeler thing. Although I think channelers come about after, like post Demonic Imperium. I don't think that there was a lot of channelers in Kost before
it's a
then.
small tradition, but it becomes a core tradition after, because the big five are all multi-class channelers of some kind.
Yeah, exactly. But it's basically Monster Hunterville, and so you have a lot of adventurers, people who either if they've been wanderers for quite a long time, or just straight up adventurers that are looking for a challenge, everyone flocks here, and you'll have all these, unlike the other countries, the other nations, the other kingdoms, the other cultures, where you have these big, large swaths of land. There is quite a lot of land for this westernmost Earth area, although it's less like useful land. There's a lot of buffer zones. It'll be like big, large stretches of basically traps and places where they can do big defensible stronghold positions. It's a lot of strongholds, and then a few like, hey, we have a massive, huge town. And like you were saying, built on the corpses of all these kaiju that we've beaten before.
It's what they call a points of light setting. Are you familiar with the term, Matt?
Yes.
It's a points of light setting. Until you get to Akathawa, and then there's no more points.
There's no more. Well, technically there are, but the points are not for you.
The points don't matter.
The points don't matter. Exactly.
So what?
I want to say it so bad.
So what happens to them during the Demonic Imperium? Because here's a thought: they don't fall. Their lives change, but they don't get conquered because of the exact. Again, the Demonic Imperium is like, don't want none of that. I almost feel like the Demonic Imperiums of like Tillabak and stuff make life worse in Akathawa, right? Like there's a secret designer city in there that just attaches metal plates and chainsaws to giant monsters and then points them towards the Earth people. Like, and there's, maybe an Iron Empire of ogres back there. Like all sorts of bad stuff is going on back there. And the Earth realm doesn't fall, but they are absolutely besieged the entire time.
I was going to say, my thought was that Imago was going to be big in keeping them down. And so it's less about like they got, like you said, overtaken. And it's more like, instead of thinking about their fellows, those their neighbors that are getting besieged,
they become
like, no, we have to
centered.
Yes,
arrogant.
Exactly.
Yeah,
arrogant, self-centered, isolationist. They're like, we have to just hold a line instead of being like, oh yeah, we're good neighbors and we're doing this, but we're also giving back. It's like, no, we are only taking care of ourselves. We're not even going to think about helping our people.
They're too weak. They're pathetic. We're so great.
Exactly. And eventually, it's not only the strength of their mind, but eventually the strength of their bodies, or not the strength of their bodies, the strength of their mind, where they end up, their self-reflection is going to eventually overcome the dark reflections of selfishness that have kind of born through within them. I feel like in my headcanon, when they start forming the team and they start bringing together, the hero from Earth is going to be the last one that is brought in, and it's going to be like this group comes in and does this big like, hey, if anybody recently watched the Super Mario movie, hey, good on you. Uh, the big plan for those spoilers, those of you who haven't seen it, if you want to watch it, turn away now. Is that Mario and the rest of the gang is like, we're gonna go to the Kongs and we're gonna say, hey, let's get the Kong army to go mess up Bowser. And that's kind of like what this is gonna be. Although instead of them all getting captured in a Mario Kart race and then hanging over lava, it's gonna work.
So their big plan is to go to the Earth realm and get their help. And I think that since the Earth realm is all about being these like incredibly badass warriors, the Earth hero should be like a bard.
Yeah, it's
something like,
I think it's gonna be like, because I feel
someone
like
who's
each
or
one
a
of
monk
these heroes,
someone who's like really humble, you know.
yes, because all of these heroes, what makes them heroes is not just that they're, you know, pinnacles of what our culture produces. It's like you said, it's like the opposite. They're able to have them see beyond how things have been and see what we can be. How we can become truly strong is not just focusing on our strength of arm, but our strength of mind. Not just focusing on our weapons of war, but on our stealth and our cunning. You know, things like that. Where we're filling in the gaps. You know, like power gamers, like, hey man, I'm gonna have 3, 16s and 3 8s. Like that's how I'm gonna build my character. I'm not even gonna worry about it. You know, blah blah blah. And they're like, hey man, let's fill in some of our weaknesses. Let's take our weakness and make that our strength, kind of a thing.
And so the ensuing cultures celebrate both aspects, right? They're brought back into balance. It's not about saying, oh, we actually are turning away from this towards that. It's like, no, we're just going to like chill.
And no buts.
Well, some buts.
Some buts. Many butts. You know what would be cool is if there was a bloke named Phineas who had been studying all 4 of the various pillars and decided, hey, it would be pretty cool to, move away from being so self-centered and kind of encompass all of what Anakra has to offer and what all of our cultures can seek to do together.
That is possible. Have a 4 pillars monk be the hero from that realm.
Yeah.
Now that I'm no longer being annihilated by animals, I'm just going to show off the lunch that Mama Shimada got me.
Yes.
This is some delicious pad thai.
Oh my goodness. All gluten-free all the time.
Yup. Oh, is that like, oh my God, there's egg. There's like a layer of scrambled egg on top of this. Holy crap.
Mate, while we're in the last 5 minutes of our show, this is kind of your go time. We're going to be doing our any news that's happening within the community or anything that's going to be coming up, any big preview announcements.
Yes. First off, tonight's episode of IOTH Academy is pushed to tomorrow. This is the first Matt is hearing about it, so you'll have to update the schedule again. What? Yeah. We pushed it to Thursday, and then we couldn't all make it Thursday, so we've now pushed it to Friday at 6 p.m. So everyone's finding out about this at the exact same time. We have the bonus episode.
That's a good update.
Yeah. I was gonna mention it, but then I was like, I'm just gonna mention it now instead. Yeah, and then we have extra show on Saturday the 27th. That is with Becca Godsey, Custa, Dustin, aka Dogman, and Lemon Kiwi. So we got that going on. We are planning something.
Do you have a name for that show yet?
No, I don't. I'm so behind.
It's been untitled for a long time.
I know it's been untitled for. I know what the adventure is. It's going to be in the Dragon Tribes. It's going to be in Okarthal, which is cool. It's actually going to be in the swamps of Megaini.
That's sick.
Yeah. So I got that. We're planning something special for Saturday, May the 4th. We are planning something special for May the 4th. So stay tuned for that. And we are likely going to have, we may or may not have Death Dragon Decadence on Monday, May the 6th. I'm still trying to hash that out. My life is in shambles right now. I've been focused so heavily on this, the show that we did on Monday, that my life is in shambles. So we may be doing a one-shot. It was going to be in Northport. It might now be in Oscus. I don't know. I'm kind of liking playing in Oscus. So I might be doing a Death Dragon and Decadence one-shot there. And then on probably Monday the 13th, we will be returning to the lands of Debrook and the misbegotten adventures of Maxor, Funny West, and Gianni Matrigrano. So probably the evening of Monday the 13th.
Yes.
Oh, and the War of the Sun turn ends in like 6 days on May the 1st.
And in 10 days on no, wait, is it 10 days or 9 days? In 9 or 10 days, either on Revenge of the Fifth or May the Fourth be with you, we're going to be doing a Star Wars Descent into Avernus game. It's going to be, and although instead of Descent into Avernus, it'll be Descent into Alderaan. Exactly. Where we'll be taking your favorite lovable goofballs of the Companions of the Crimson Chain, and they're going to be Star Warsified. So they're totally not going to blow themselves up and destroy everything unintentionally.
It's a one shot. We can do whatever we want.
You guys remember in one of the recent films that happened, it totally happened, where they took a ship and they hyperdrived it into the other ship, and then it, yeah, we get to do that. It's going to be awesome.
I think that's about it for me. I think we can go ahead and. Will there be a Gungan explosives expert? I don't think so, because we're. Oh no, I could do that as an NPC.
You could do that as an NPC.
That's a definite maybe.
Maybe.
Cool. I think that's about it. Anything else from you, Matt?
Oh, that's about it.
All right. Good talk. I have several games to prepare for, actually. I'm doing a off-stream one shot with some community members that's long overdue. Helldivers to play. I'm swamped.
Dude. Best way to be swamped, though, diving into hell, doing community games, playing Witcher if you're Matt, because I finally got a hold of Witcher after 10 years, because that's how quickly I get on top of games. So, do you guys know that's a really fun setting to play in? My goodness.
I've heard.
Great.
All right, folks. I got a dip.
Monster Hunter.
Thank you so much, and we will see you tomorrow for Ioth Academy. Tomorrow.